9.7, we're going to talk about the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. So a converse, kind of the opposite of, or it's going to tell us something else about the Pythagorean theorem. But the first problem, super simple, just says which of the following sets of numbers could represent the three sides of a right triangle. Read this because sometimes it will say could represent, sometimes it says could not. You know that the longest side is going to be the hypotenuse in every one. Right? Hypotenuse is going to be the longest, the legs should be the shorter one. So I'm just checking, could 22 squared plus 28 squared equal 35 squared? And I'm looking for the ones that do. So this side gets, oh, whoops, 22 squared, what's happening? 22 squared plus 28 squared. It's much bigger, 1,268. And 1,225. So that one's out. So you would want to keep going until you find the combination that works. I tried the 5, 12, 3 one, squaring 5 and 12 and adding that together gets 169. 13 squared is also 169, so I get a true statement that the leg squared did equal the hypotenuse squared. So that's just regular Pythagorean theorem. But now what else it tells us besides that is if the triangle is obtuse or acute. Obtuse means it has one really big angle that's more than 90 degrees. Acute is that all three angles are going to be less than 90. And of course we have the one that's exactly 90. So now we can say that if the hypotenuse squared is greater than the sum of the legs squared, it's obtuse. So here's my obtuse angle here. And think about that. What that means is that this is so big that to make the legs meet it, they have to widen instead of being at a 90. So now they have to widen, and that's where your obtuse angle comes from. Versus acute, let's say that this is my maybe hypotenuse, and its squared is smaller than the sum of the leg squared. That means that it's so short that now my legs, instead of being a 90, have to come in to make my acute angle here. So that's all you're checking. So it says use the Pythagorean theorem to determine if each triangle is right, acute, or obtuse. And so again, the biggest number should be my hypotenuse. I'm using air quotes because I don't know if it's really a right triangle yet. So I would put that first and see, I'm going to put a box, see if 33 squared plus 44 squared is, what is that compared to 55 squared? So it came out exactly equal, so that tells me that it is a right triangle. And this will be just a drop-down menu because the square of the largest side equals the sum of the squares of the other two sides. Okay, let's try number 2. So biggest side is the 66, put that first. Put a box again. So this time I see that my hypotenuse, or the biggest side squared, is greater than the sum of the side squared. So this means it's obtuse because the square of the largest side is greater than the sum of the squares of the other two sides. And then the last one, your longest side is the 77. And I got that the biggest side squared is less than the sum of the legs squared. So the triangle is acute because the square of the largest side is less than the sum of the squares of the other two sides.